All right, welcome back to Donna and Friends. Thanks for staying with us as we go into part 2 of ISO information here with our Cushing Fire Chief, Chris Pixler. Now, I want to start off this second segment by saying, as we go through this, because there is so much information packed into this, if you're watching this episode and you have questions of your own, you're a property owner, a business owner, what have you, you want to understand about your fire hydrant, that type of thing, you can contact us by emailing us at rdmgtv@gmail.com, and if we get enough concerns, we'll have you come back, Chris, and we will do a follow-up where we answer your questions that you submit to us here at Red Dirt Media Group.
I think it's important that the citizens get their questions answered, and we're more than happy to do that. And if we do it that way, then everybody will get to hear the answer and see where we're at.
Absolutely. Well, let's go on with this list.
I'm going to go real quick through the list, and we'll get down to the end of it, and then we can go into detail on a few elements. But they also grade us on incident management, whether we use the incident management system, and then we're into new elements. The FSRS that we were graded on in 2013 will not be the same FSRS we'll be graded on the next time. Number one, instead of every 10 years, they're increasing it to every 3 to 5 years.
Oh.
And the second element is they've added elements to the FSRS that we will now be graded on in the future. So that's fire prevention, code adoption, and enforcement. Fire prevention certification, so the people that do the fire inspections, we have to show their certification that meets NFPA compliancy. Fire inspector continuing education units, plans review on new construction, inspections for certificate of occupancy, quality assurance program on that, code compliance follow-up, inspections of private fire protection equipment, fire prevention ordinances that would be fireworks, some of those are already in place, fireworks, hazardous material routes, barbecue grills, wildland urban interface.
Fire pits, I know I've talked about my fire pit before.
Coordinate pre-incident planning, which we've been doing for quite a while now, public safety education, fire safety education, fire safety continuing education, those guys, even the fire safety educators have to be certified by NFPA, juvenile fire sitter intervention program, fire safety education in our schools.
And some of this you do.
Some of this we do.
And have done for years.
We have some criteria that we'll have to tweak those systems into, but we do. They'll also grade us on all of our fire investigative skills. And then we go in the water department, and might be a good idea to have Mr. Landis on someday to talk about our water infrastructure and how it relates back, because I can tell you about fire hydrants and that's about it. But they go through everything on the water department from minimum storage to the delivery rate, emergency supply, suction supply, the fire department supply, what our main capacities are in the community, and then we get into hydrant distribution, how many we have, how far apart they are, the hydrants by size type, and how they were installed into the ground, how often we do hydrant inspections, and how often we do flow testing within the city. Then the final element is the divergence factor. So what ISO's goal is to, they don't want any one element, any one of these three elements to be a whole lot greater than the other.
Okay.
So they say if the emergency dispatch technically is a 5, and the fire department is technically a 5, and the water department is a 6, we're going to throw a divergence factor in there to equal them out. We'll pull the other two departments down to equal whatever. So for us, to give you an example, our total score in 2013 for all three departments was a 58.8 out of 100. That had 0.82 points of divergence factor in it. If you were to go back and break down the three elements, technically dispatch qualifies to be a 4. Technically, the water department qualifies to be a 4. The fire department sits in the 5 realm, so there's 0.82% of divergence factor calculated in, which gives us the 5.80 of 100. And for us to be at a 4, we would need 60 points to 69 points.
Okay, so you're close.
We're close.
You're very close in this, and you feel like there are certain factors that you can do right now, currently, to bring that to a 4 without any cost.
You'll hear me focus a whole lot on our department about training hours. Training hours, and most of those, a good portion of those are in-house training hours. It's finding the time each day to where we can achieve 16 hours per month of training per person in structural firefighter training.
And because that's in-house, there's not really a cost. It's not like you're sending people to a class, a school, or that type.
We have plenty of those also, but
Well, I bet you do.
Our goal is 20 hours a month per person. So we hope that by doing 20 hours a month per person, when you got a guy that takes off on vacation, or we have a shift where we're overrun by responses and we don't get our training, the extra 4 hours per month in the previous months will help offset those times.
So you're trying to stay ahead of it a little bit if you can.
We're trying to stay ahead of it. So we're averaging right now 10 runs a shift.
Okay.
The last week has been really bad. I think we've probably been up in the 15 runs per shift. So we're averaging 10 runs per shift, and then we're trying to squeeze 2 hours minimum of structural firefighter training per shift in there.
Do you find that you're going out on different calls, that there's different times of the year where that
Yes.
comes up higher?
Yes.
And could you tell me those times of the year? I'm going to suspect when we have a burn ban,
It-
we have a high wind situation and we haven't had any rain, of course being one. But in the wintertime, could that be a factor, the winter itself?
The winter seems to be a factor. It seems very cyclical. I mean, it looks like a roller coaster if you were to graph it out. January, February, March is usually very high call volume.
Okay.
We'll slow down April, May, and then we'll pick up a little bit June, July when we get into the heat of the summer. We'll slow back down again for a couple of months, August, September, and then right at the onset of winter we'll pick up. Seems to slow down during the holidays, and then January we pick up again.
So is there any rhyme or reason to that you can?
I wish
your
I could give you.
finger
I
on?
wish
I
I
mean,
had.
that-
I
that
wish I had
causes
a
that
brilliant
cycle.
answer to give you on that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I can even address the aspect that in 1998, 2000 era, we were running about 1,100 calls a year.
Okay.
Somewhere around 2003, 2005, those calls volume started escalating, and last year we ran a little over 2,500 calls. Which is interesting. Our population hasn't grown. Our actual residential population has
Right.
not grown. Our daytime population is larger.
I call that the lunch kids.
Yes, the lunch
that are
kids.
working here, but they're
Yes.
living somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting thought that has caused a higher.
So we've had a 100% increase in call volume over the last, 10, 15 years without any real residential population growth.
Well, I find that really interesting. In the past, through the paper and the station, I used to come and get a lot of the reports, and I always found it interesting when it would just break out, and it would seem to be that way for a while, and then it would kind of ease off. I always have found that rather interesting.
And some of it is, on the fire protection side, we cover around 70 square miles. So out of 70 square miles, 7.7 square miles of that is city of Cushing proper, and then we cover the areas surrounding us. We go north to Yale, we go east to Drumright, and we go back to the west to Perkins and Ripley, where their districts meet up. And then on the ambulance, we're covering close to a 300 square mile area, all the way up Yale, the city of Yale, the town of Ripley. Those are all within our ambulance response areas. So it has a little more to do. I mean, we could have seen population growth in the rural area that affects our responses, even though we didn't see it in the city limits.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. In the remainder of this segment, we have a couple of minutes left. What else do you find that's important for people that are watching this right now to understand?
I think we're doing real well. I know during the elections for City Hall and for the ladder truck, and I've seen it in the election, the races for commission seats right now. There's a lot of talk about infrastructure, and I'm 100% behind infrastructure, both as a
Right.
resident and as the fire chief. I think we have to be real careful, the commission, the city manager, and water and fire, if we're going to invest, $3-4 million in water infrastructure, it could have a negative effect or an adverse effect on our ISO rating. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means we need to plan it out
It probably needs to be well-rounded between all three.
Try to counteract as much as we can. Like I said, that does not mean we shouldn't do water. If it costs us some points on here, having new water lines and new fire hydrants is probably worth it. It's just something we should address and look at.
Right, and I'm sure in the future you would be able to figure out ways to bring up the other two of these three elements, but it might cause a situation for a period of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
It might be a timing issue. We might want to time it out so that we do those elements and get them on board right after an ISO rating so that we have 5 or so years to
Chris,
recoup.
it really is, having had you come in here, because I didn't really have a big understanding of the ISO ratings and what have you, it really is a very delicate combination of things.
With many city services involved. And John Doak, the state insurance commissioner, he was up here 2 years ago to the legislative luncheon, and he's real high on trying to help fire departments get their ISO rating down. And in 2011, he spoke at a conference on this, where in actuarial analysis, he figured there was about a 10% decrease per rating drop. Now, there's other arguments to that, all the way down to 4%, but there's definitely a cost savings to the taxpayers.
Well, it's quite the subject, and it's very detailed, and he can get even more detailed with you. And again, if you want to have some questions answered yourself about what you've been hearing, or you don't quite understand what you heard here today even, you can email us at rdmgtv@gmail.com, and if we get enough of those questions together, we'll have Chris come back in and address your questions and other people's as well, because it is something I think we need to educate ourselves on as a community, and something that really isn't expounded on much, and I can kind of see why, because it's got a lot of fingers to it. But Chris, I appreciate you coming in today, and hopefully this will help someone out there, and if they have a question, you've got a way to get your answer. Thanks a lot for coming in. Look forward to having you in the future. You're watching Donna and Friends.